Hello everybody, it's Glass Half Dead here, and today I'm joined by Steve from Vanguard Tactics. We've just finished playing our game from last night. We're going to play another one tonight. Very excited for it. Steve, what are we talking about today?
Well, obviously I'm just getting into Kill Team.
Yes.
And I'm sure many of us out there are also very interested in picking up this game. I've been completely blown away by it, but I want to know, if I was a beginner, or what would you tell somebody who would be a really good faction for a beginner to start with?
That's right. Top 5 beginner factions, you know you want it. We were considering doing like a tier list, but it's like, we don't know enough yet. So we're just doing top 5 beginner factions. Okay, we're going to start with a nice, easy one, but before we get into that, I want to say that if you're a subscriber to my channel, I'd like to give you a big double hello. Wow, wasn't that such a wholesome sound that we all need in our lives? Let's hope I remember to edit that in after doing this live. Okay, Steve, I think that this isn't going to blow anybody away when I give the first of the beginner factions, and that is Space Marines. Now, Space Marines, and I think all of the things that we're going to be talking about here, all of the 5 factions, they're going to be durable factions. Because durability in Kill Team really just means you don't get punished for your mistakes. Now, not only are the Marines a durable faction with that 3-up save and a decent amount of wounds, but they also are kind of all, apart from one of them, one-box kill teams. So we're not just looking at what's easy to play, we're also looking at what's easy to collect. Have you looked at Marines yourself?
Well, typically in 40k, I tend to stir people away from Marines as their first faction.
Okay, interesting.
Because of analysis paralysis. Because there's so many options. You know, do you collect that type of Marine or that? And you look at their codex, so much thicker than the others. And there is a little bit of that in the compendium where there are so many different options to take of Marines. So if I could narrow you in even further,
yes,
out of all the Marine ones, which ones have the least amount of options? Because I think that's genuinely where you should start. And which ones are the most durable out of all the Marines? So if you're thinking, cool, I want to play a Marine faction, which one would you go towards?
Easy, I've already got the answer. So that is going to be Infiltrators. Now, those are the Phobos Marines. I don't know how much they get played in 40k, but the reason that Infiltrators are the best ones to play is twofold. Firstly, they're just really good. So it's a 5-model team. 4 of your guys are kitted out exactly the same with a marksman, a bolt carbine rifle, I think, and they have a really nice rule there, lethal 5+. It's very easy to remember. There's no cognitive load on you there. It's just, they're all the same. It costs 1 box, but half a box, because the other half of that box are incursors. So actually for a single box, you have 2 kill teams, which is actually the best value in the whole of the kill team. You get 2 kill teams, 1 box, and Infiltrators are just, I think, pretty good. They have access to some decent equipment that the rest of the Space Marines don't get. So yeah, Infiltrators.
We've got some here as well.
We do. So, I think those are incursors, with the little targeting things?
Yes, they are the incursor models there, but like you said, you could also use those as those infiltrators
For
as
sure.
well. Yeah. So it's kind of a dual kit, which is quite cool. So from collecting to having simple options, I really like that. Yeah, very nice, cool. Love it.
Definitely. They are, I think they are where everybody should start playing the game, especially because we've talked about durability, we've talked about ease of collection, but also cognitive load. I mentioned it very briefly there. You've only got 5 models. Yeah. When you're learning the game, I genuinely recommend that everybody starts with an elite team. It's easy to do. 5 models, you can't go too far wrong. They are balanced around only being 5 models, so it's not like I'm only taking 5 models, therefore I'm not as good as a 10 model faction. That's not how the game works. They're a good kill team.
All rounders, yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I like the fact that you're going to get the repetition effect, because this is something that I talk about in 40k. I always try to encourage people to take the same units multiple times. So then when you're in the movement phase, you get, let's say there's 5 turns in the game and you use 1 unit, you might get to move it 5 times if you're lucky, if it ends to, lasts to the end. But if you run 3 of those units, now you're going to get 15 movement phases in, 15 shooting phases in. It's going to help you with that repetition and really remember those rules. So when you get to the table, you can play with a bit more conviction, a bit more confidence. And I think, having all those guns exactly the same, perfect, and having the same lethal rule is great as well, because then you're also going to be practicing the critical aspect of the dice mechanics, which is another good part to remember because that's so big in Kill Team. So I love it. So what's next?
Okay, so taking what I just said there about a small team, about durability, we go a step further, and it's still one box. So this is essentially doing the same thing, but even more concentrated. It has to be Custodes. Now, Custodes are only 4 models, so even less than the Marines there. You can run them differently, but I would recommend just run the 4 Custodes. Now, the reason they're so good is just exactly the same as the Marines, but more so. There's not much more to add to them than that. They're even more durable with 18 wounds instead of 12. They're even more killy, but they're killy in a slightly different way. So they're actually not that great at shooting. Their shooting's fine, but it's just shooting. It's not anything to really, matter and worry about. But then you get to really explore the melee of the game. They have a very interesting damage profile on their Guardian Spears. And that is, when you get a critical strike, they have the ability, potentially, if you're up against certain models, to remove them from the game in a single hit. And that allows you to start thinking about wound and damage thresholds and taking that to the next level, because suddenly you have to play around in the combat phase and really get to grips with what you're rolling and how to negotiate the entire fight sequence.
Yeah, and if I could break that down a little bit, because obviously I think some of the things there you mentioned about, from what I'm gathering, is they can be very efficient at killing an individual. So let's say their damage is very high in the combat, you know that you can do a small amount of damage with your shooting weapon to go in and then completely eradicate that model that you want. So you can be very effective. My model is going to achieve this turn. And again, this is something that I'm always teaching in 40k, and I think these principles are very similar. When you're coming into the start of your turn, you want to think about, what do I want to hold objective-wise, what actions or secondaries do I want to score, and what model do I want to take away from the top, take away from the table. Custodes are very good at that. That model there is going to die this action, and I think you're right. So in terms of the Custodes, to keep it simple, what would be the perfect loadout to make this even simpler?
So this is super easy with them. You'd give 3 of them a Misericordia.
Okay.
The way that works is at the end of a combat action, at the end of a fight action, if the enemy model is still alive on a 4-up, they just take 3 mortal wounds.
Wow. That's nice.
And then that's just a thing that all your guys have. But then I'd say you give the 4th one a Tanglefoot grenade. That allows you to play around with stun a little bit, manipulation of APL.
Yeah. And if somebody's not at that level yet, anything even simpler they could do?
Another Misericordia.
Okay,
Yeah, you don't have to go that far.
Yeah.
Misericordia is a really nice finisher
Yeah.
for the Custodes.
Again, if your rolls haven't been as well as you wanted, maybe you didn't quite, you said it's very forgiving, maybe you didn't quite get the shooting correct to do the wounds you needed to before you went into combat, having that extra 3, you're going to deliver, well, obviously, you say it's on a 4-up?
Yeah.
Brilliant, yeah, so there's that. Again, you're taking away opportunities to fail by having these built-in sort of extra rules, which is awesome. And they're very easy to remember then, rather than having lots of different things, which I love. Okay, perfect, so what's next? What's number
Next up.
3?
Okay, so we're going slightly different here. We're going to move over to the Xenos, because I've got to be honest, I'm a Xenos player at heart. Marines, they're there. I would recommend them to beginners, but let's not talk about a bit of flavour. But I still want to keep in mind durability. I still want to keep in mind an elite team. So we're going to go over to the Tau. Now, to call Tau durable and elite, that might confuse a 40k player. I'm not quite sure, but the way I'm going to say you should build your Tau to be a beginner faction is to just take 2 fire teams of stealth suits. So that's 6 stealth suits in total. You can replace one of them with some drones if you want to do that, but there's no need.
Keep it simple.
Keep it simple, exactly. But you do have the options of either taking a fusion blaster or a burst rifle cannon, something like that. Burst rifle?
Burst rifle, yeah.
Yep. I would probably recommend you do want to mix at this point. So you want to start thinking about, because the Marines Custodes, they all have the same thing.
Yeah.
Right? You probably want to take 2 fusion rifles and everybody else are bursting, because they act very differently. But they're also both very strong.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're great. And the real good thing about them actually is you can start playing around with how cover works as well.
Yeah.
Because they have the camouflage field, which essentially means you only get shot when you want to get shot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
which
that's
is crazy.
So that's actually how they're durable, and it's not in their
Yes.
amount of rolls that they get. It's the fact that they can really manipulate cover and conceal and the rest of it, which is awesome. And yeah, we found like you said, even in 40k, my sort of scaled down version, it's like running triple Riptide. That's how these guys feel with the burst cannons. Very elite, very durable. You do not kill Riptides in 40k. They're so hard to kill. And it's very similar to this because they've got good invulnerable saves. But like this, yeah, exactly the same. So, and we've tested some of these out and they are deadly. The amount of shots they can put through. And what I love about them actually is that they can split fire. You've got
the fusillade.
Yeah, you're able to allocate your shots because they get so many shots onto different targets. So let's say, and this is where I think they're a little bit forgiving. So let's say the first guy doesn't quite do what he needed to, but it's left that model with just that one wound remaining. The next one could go, yeah, I'll put some shots on him, get him off, and I'll put the rest onto there. And then the third guy can then pick up that one, and you've got this really nice, because of that fusillade.
I think that's what it's called, yeah.
So again, fantastic kind of rule there to help you with the failure points again.
Yeah.
Nice.
And to take it back there, the camouflage field, as you say, it's durable in a completely different way.
Yeah.
If they get shot, you will be punished for that mistake, but that means you really have to focus and narrow down on, right, now I'm all about the movement, and I take the shots when I can get them, but I'm not trying to shoot.
Yeah.
But you're still going to win. That's how great they are. Yeah. And then that takes us over to Tyranids. Now, I actually think Tyranids have a few different ways that you can run them, and they will be very good, even though they're beginner. I think you could just do 10 Gene Stealers, but we're not going to do that because that goes against the beginner faction idea of being elite. Because genuinely, I really would recommend, as you're learning the game, as you're a beginner, keep elite.
And we've got some of the Nid warriors here, and these are my faves. As you can see there, just massive weapons, both, you know, the bone swords that they've got options. They've got so many different options. And again, if you're a beginner, I've loaded my 3 out here with exactly the same weapons. So again, I'm just getting that repetition effect. It's all becoming familiar, and I'm sure my Nid warriors here will just eat up everybody. But yeah, they've got some awesome equipment as well, which again is nice because you can stack those just to give more utility. And I think they've got something like 18 wounds. That's
right, they have 18 wounds, same as Custodes there. Yeah. And also, if you're coming over from 40k, you might think, oh, so many loadout options, I'm probably going to need to buy more because they're not going to be valid, but they will. Yeah. Because obviously one of the good things about 40k, haven't mentioned it till now, but chances are the whole game's built around, if you have a 40k army, they're legal. And they've deliberately put in options that perhaps aren't as, balanced, so that it does fit for those with 40k models.
Yeah, so in 40k you might not take, for example, a plasma pistol, because obviously you think, well, I probably won't get it in range, there's a chance I'm going to kill myself, I'm better off just not taking any weapons in min-maxing.
Yes.
Whereas in this game, a plasma pistol or a flamer or a melter gun, you can see a reason as to why you might take any of those options, because they all do very different things. And again, it really feels like a tool in the toolbox, whereas in 40k, it doesn't quite work like that because it's so scenario and driven, the table's so big, whereas pistol weapons in a game like this, which is so close and confined, you've got much higher chance of actually achieving that. So everything is a good option, whether you're taking a power sword, a power fist, a power axe, whatever your choice is. You're like, oh, do I want a bit of minimum damage, or do I want a bit extra on the critical? Do I want a bit extra attacks? Do I want to hit on a higher number? And there's so many different options. And again, keep it simple, get the repetitions in, keep it all the same, test that weapon out before you then try the next one. But what I would suggest you do is put it on every model first. Play a game using that weapon type. Did I like it? How often did it come up? Then in your next game, change them all to another one, test out that one, and then by the end of it, not only are you going to be so familiar with these rules, but then also you can go, actually, I like that one on this model, this one on that model, that one on this one, and as you progress, start to then make it a little bit more unique to you, but keep it simple. Repetition is key.
Definitely.
So, one more.
Final one, And again, we're looking at durable. In fact, little tip, let's see if you can figure out what I'm going to say. Durable, all the same model, slow. It's the Death Guard. That's right. So the Death Guard are actually one of the most durable factions because they have the disgustingly resilient special, which for those of you familiar with 40k, we might, well, you already know what that are called, that's the same name, but others might call it a 5-up, feel no pain.
Yeah.
So that's every time you take a wound, you roll a dice, on a 5-up, you don't lose the wound. Now in 40k, you have 2 wounds, right? As a plague marine.
Yeah.
Well here, you've got 12.
Yeah.
And you get to roll for every single one of those, so you can immediately see the benefits of that.
Yeah, and they actually took it off 40k.
Did they?
And
outrageous.
And it's now -1 damage.
Right, I vaguely recall this.
And the reason for that is because sometimes you can roll so hot on those 5s, you can your opponent is really hard to plan against it, and that's going to be the same effect in kill team, right?
Yes.
So if I'm thinking, okay, on average I should do X amount of damage, but if you know that a third of the damage that you put through is probably going to get saved, because if you're looking for a 5 or a 6, then you've literally got a 33% chance of achieving that on a D6. So then just making you essentially are adding that onto the wounds as well.
Yeah.
So that's another 4 wounds basically. If you're starting with 12, you may as well think of them as 16 wound models.
Which is huge, considering you're taking 5.
In Death Guard is a really good beginner army in 40k as well because it's durable. There's minimal options, so it's like, do I take this unit or that unit? And you don't get the complete decision fatigue like you can do with some other factions. So I'm in complete agreement with you there. Brilliant.
Yeah, and they are slow. That is something else to consider about them. Now, obviously, that's actually kind of their big flaw. Like, that's why that's a balancing effect they've put in. But again, as a beginner, that's not necessarily a bad thing for you. It means movement is quite difficult.
Yeah.
Right? Like, as a beginner, movement is what you need to master. And as a slow faction, you kind of remove that as a variable. You get to just say, well, I can't move that far, so I'm going to do the obvious thing.
Yeah.
And as a beginner, that can actually be quite good for you.
Yeah. You can't overthink it.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a bit more one-dimensional, which is fine, and then you kind of really look at the other phases to where you're going to get that sort of level of complexity which may come. So I think that's been awesome. Any concluding thoughts?
Oh, concluding thoughts. I kind of said it at the beginning, I would genuinely recommend that everybody learns the game with an elite team. If you don't like any of the factions we said there, I would suggest that whatever your faction is, guardsmen maybe, orcs, whatever, for a time, for your first 2-3 games, I would honestly suggest just proxy your models. Yeah. Say, okay, these 5 guardsmen, they're 5 infiltrators. Just for the first few games, I've taught 3 or 4 people how to play the game so far, and I've done that every time, and it has really helped all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, so to summarize, keep it simple, repetition is key, and remove as many fatiguing elements of decision making as you possibly can by using that repetition effect.
And durability is a way to stop you from being punished for mistakes.
Yeah.
And that's what beginners really need.
Love it.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Okay, well everybody, if you made it to the end of the video, I'd like to give you a big thank you, and I'd like to give you a big triple hello. Another lovely noise. That's my payment for you for watching to the end of the video, because it genuinely helps a small channel like mine. And if you want to check out Steve's channel, Vanguard Tactics, please do. The links will of course be in the description. What can I say? We're both loving Kill Team at the moment. That's why we're here.
Yeah.
Right. Awesome. Do you want to say goodbye, Steve?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good day.
Bye.